Hello and welcome to Moving to thinkorswim Mobile, session 4 of 4, as we've been really talking about the thinkorswim mobile app on a phone. So quick reminder, I am using an iPhone. And as Ken Rose mentioned, if you're using a Samsung device, stay tuned. He has a quick note for you there. Just real quick as we get started, I'd like to welcome everyone. Great to be back with you. I've been out of town this last week or so. Let's go ahead and hop right in. Now, remember, we're going to be talking about options here today using the thinkorswim mobile app. Remember that options carry a high level of risk, not suitable for all investors. Also remember the information here is for general informational purposes only. Also remember that when we talk about investing, that involves risk. And also remember our examples here today are just that. Now, today we're on session 4, placing and managing option spread trades. And we're going to hop right into that. And remember, these are 20-minute sessions. And I want to give you just a resource to make sure you know where to kind of, if you haven't seen all the prior classes, where you could see those. I sent this link to you in the chat, okay? And what you're going to notice is on May 31st, I just sent the link out to you. And on May 31st, we started Your Phone Becoming an Investment Tool, monitoring your portfolio on the go, trading single options on thinkorswim Mobile. The last 3 sessions have been phone-based. But then if you look at the previous weeks before that, I used a tablet or an iPad, okay? Now, I think many of us probably might be using a phone more than an iPad, but I was just in the airport. There was lots of iPads there, okay? But now, let's go ahead here. And so make sure you have that link, save it. Today will be the last session on thinkorswim Mobile. And so just know that you can always use these prior classes as a resource. Now, let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to share my device. And I'm just going to be just sharing my phone. And you should see it just momentarily. And we're going to go right back to the way we finished. There we go. So first off, as we look at this, change that. Okay, there we go. Now, we're looking at my phone here, and what you're going to be noticing is I have a pointer that we're going to kind of use it as a guide of what we're looking at, okay? So just as before, we have, now remember, if you're a Samsung user, at the very top left, you should have 3 lines. You click on those 3 lines, and then what you're going to see is down, you will see overview, you'll see overview, watch list, trade, right? All down at the bottom, okay? And positions, more, etc. Now, what we're going to be focusing on is I want to kind of start off with a sample portfolio. Now, one of the questions might be, well, how do I know if I'm on the real or paper? Well, if at the very top left, I click on where it says IRA, I'm going to click on that, and it shows that we're highlighted to paper money and we're on the IRA. You can toggle to live trading, but that's not selected, and we're using the paper money account, okay? But you can toggle back and forth if you wanted to, and we've talked about that. Now, the other question really comes down to is when you look at these positions, okay, and they're listed from A to Z, how do you know which ones are stock positions? How do you know which ones are option positions? So first off, what you're going to notice is if I look just kind of down here, a number of these kind of have this where you can expand it. Expand, expand, expand. But then all of a sudden down here on Meta, you're not seeing that expansion. Why do you think that is? Well, that's a stock position, Meta stock. PG is a stock position, okay? So whenever you see there's an expansion, and if I open this up and said, open that, just click on it to expand it, that's an option position. We can see what those options are, okay? So that's one way how you could see it. Is it a stock or an option position? If you can expand it, it's an option position, okay? Second way we could see it is if we put delta on the column heading. Now, you might be thinking, well, how do you put the delta on the column heading? The eternal symbol. You don't even have to speak English, okay? We know that if we were in Poland and you saw, for example, settings, a little gear icon, that's the eternal symbol for settings. If you click on that right there, click on that gear, and what you're going to notice is we can say search all columns, And we could just say, look, I want to see delta, okay? And you could put that in. I already have mine in. That's why it's not pulling up. So mine's already there at the top. So just go to that gear right there and then just search for delta. Remember, these column headings, you can toggle over and you could see more information. You can add the columns. And the reason I'm bringing this up, how would you know that this is also an option position? We said you can expand it. You could see delta. You could also see theta. Stock positions don't have theta. Stock positions don't have vega. Okay? So if you have those column headings on, that's the easiest way to see what those positions are in terms of are they options or stocks. So when I look down here, if I see like 20.00, that's most likely a stock position. 100.00, that's 100 shares of stock. Delta, if you have how many ever shares you have, that's going to be what the delta is. When we look at options, they're not usually going to be like to the 100.00. Okay. So those are kind of ways to tell what the positions are. Now, let's get into kind of the trading aspect. We're going to go down to the very bottom. We're going to click on the trade icon at the bottom. Remember, if you're a Samsung user, go top left, click on the three lines, find trade. We're going to click on that. And what we're going to do, as we clicked on trade at the bottom, if you're using an iPhone, what you're now going to see is we're going to bring up a symbol PG. And I'm just typing that in with my finger. And what I'm now going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to click on, let's go to the option chain for PG. Let's do that, option chain. Now, what you're going to now notice is let's kind of focus on a couple things that we want to do if we're talking about advanced options, okay? So what you're now going to see is on the left-hand side, we have charts and then news, then options. We are on options, okay? You're also going to notice where it says spread. If we're doing, let's say, advanced options, we want to make sure that if I click on that, what does it do? Well, yours might just say single. Single would be like you're buying a call, you're selling a call, you're buying a put, you're selling a put, etc. We don't want to do single. We want to do advanced options like verticals, diagonals, things like that. We're now going to click on single, go to vertical. Okay, that's not too bad. Now, what you're also going to notice is in the middle there, it's going to say strikes. Okay, now remember when I now scroll down, you're now going to see there's that expansion again. Okay, we're going to get used to that. Open it up, close it, open it up, close it. Okay, now what you're also going to see down the middle of the column, strike 150, 155, 155, 160, and so on. What we're going to do is we're going to do a long call vertical first. Okay, if we want to do a long call vertical first at the 165, 170, we're just going to go to the ask. And if we click on the ask right there, click, okay, you're now going to see, let me show that one more time. All you got to do is click on the ask price. Now, remember what we said last week. James, I don't see the columns that I normally like to see. Don't worry. Scroll over. Just take your finger and swipe to the left. James, I don't know how to put the column headings on. You do now. Go to that setting, that little gear. You can put any column that you typically want on there. Okay, have at it. Okay, so just toggle over, toggle back. Now, we're going to click on the $3. That's the 165, 170. Now, if we click on that, when you look at this initially, it's kind of like you see this big red minus and a big green plus. Now, I just want to kind of make sure you understand. This is not that we're selling the option, that we're selling that option. This is if we want to take this row off or take this row off if we click on the minus. So that minus is to say, hey, we're taking that off. Or if we click on the plus there, we're adding an option leg, okay? What we really want to see is, what is this position? It says +1. We're buying the 165 call, okay? We're buying the 165 call. Second, how do we know we're buying or selling? Well, if it says -1, we're selling the 170, and there you go. Now, what you're going to notice is the overall, it's a debit spread, meaning that the investor is paying for it, okay? Buy, okay, limit, day, and we have it at the mid price. Now, what I'm going to do is kind of scroll down for just a sec, And what you're going to notice is we have the risk profile. If you click on that risk profile right here, you're going to see what the break evens are. You're going to see the diagram down and below. So if we pull up different, let's say advanced option orders, etc., we can see this order. And then +1, where does it need to be at expiration? We can also see the probabilities and so on, and the risk profile diagram. Kind of cool, okay? Remember what we said on the first session. Your phone is not just looking at Facebook and TikTok, okay? It's a tool, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the bottom right. We're going to click on where it says review. And once we do this, now you're going to see that how do we know that this is in paper? At the very top, simulated trade confirmation, okay? How do we know it's in paper again? Where do I see it again? Paper money, paper trade down at the bottom right. So really to do a long call vertical, really not that bad, okay? Now, I'm just going to do, since we're here, I'm going to do this for time's sake, okay? If the investor said, well, James, we're looking at the left-hand side calls, well, what about the puts? I like to do short puts. Well, how would you sell the put? Just go to the strike. Now, if you wanted to sell the put only, what do we need to do? Well, if you're talking about selling the put only, let's go back to spread, click on vertical, change it back to single. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back down to the August expiration, if that's the one we're looking for. If the investor said, I want to sell the 165, I want to do a cash secured put, they would just be clicking on that 247. If you click on that 247, click. What you're now going to notice is, how do we know we're buying or selling? It says -1 and that you're selling, okay? So that's if you want to do a cash secured put. Some people think, hey, that's a advanced strategy. Depends who you talk to. Now let's kind of go back to, okay, spread single again. We're going to click on that. Many of you might do short put verticals. Let's just take a quick moment there. Vertical. And now what you're going to notice is we're going to scroll back down. And let's say the investor says, I want to do the 160, 165. Okay. If we come over here to that 122 in the bid column, we're on the put side. Okay. And remember, we can see what the implied volatility is and the expected move from now until expiration. So if I just click on that 126 with our finger, click, you're now going to see that we're selling what? Now remember, do not get confused. This is if we want to take this off. And we're going to see that in just a moment with the rolling order, okay? We're selling the 165, the higher strike, and then we're buying the 160 strike. Okay, now we did that before. We know how that works. We're going to scroll down. We can see the risk profile of that, which is going to look like the other one. It's going to kind of look like a sideways S, okay? Now let's take another viewpoint. Let's imagine that these positions already filled. Where would we actually see those positions? Well, if we went down to the bottom to positions, if you're on an iPhone, or the top left, click on the 3 lines, find the positions icon, we're going to click on positions. This is now going to show our positions. How do I know which one are options? How do I know which one are stocks? Reminder, anything that has that expansion, like well, that's what I mean by expansion, those are options. Okay, and we talked about that when we started. Now, the other thing is what we're going to show is, let's say the investor said, look, I want to kind of manage or close a position out. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to open this up. And what I want to do is I want to look at this position. We have the 182.5 call and the 177.5 long call. I'm going to toggle here to the right with my one finger, and I'm going to look at this and say, okay, what type of percentages do we have? And we could see the profit loss percent, the net liquid amount. We could see the profit loss open. Now, remember, you can put those columns whatever you want by clicking on the settings. Let's say for some reason we said, hey, I don't have the percentage I want yet, but I just want to get out of the position. How do you get out? Put a check mark in there. Now, if you want to just get out of that one by itself, we could say close selected or roll, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to click on both to say we want to get out of this position, which is that long call vertical. How do you close it? Well, just go down and click on close selected. And if we click on where it says close selected, it gives us an option. And the option that we're really going to be doing in this case is take the top line. This line there is if we just want to get out of one side of the position. We want to get out of the vertical. We click on that, and then just click on close selected. That's really not that bad. You just got to click on it and say close selected. Now it's going to bring up the order. Is this what you want to do? Let's say we want to do that, and we say review that. Paper trade, we're on simulated trade. Yes. Paper trade, yes. Send it. And we see at the bottom, we see that view order. Now, notice it already filled. Where can we see where it filled? Well, we're going to go back to the overview tab down at the bottom. Click on that. One place we could see it is if I went back to the overview and I said, hey, what positions filled today? I'm going to say we have 4 orders. 2 are working, 2 filled. How do I see which one's filled? Click on where it says 2 filled. And we could see, do that again, but just click on where it says 2. And then what it does is it literally shows which one's filled. How do I see which one's working? Click right there where it says working. Okay, working, filled, canceled, etc. Okay, now let's kind of go back to this. Let's take it one more step. So we're going to go back to positions. Let's say that we wanted to roll the position. And let's say on that, we'll use the exact same stock for time's sake. We got a 180 call and a 185. And let's say we decided that we want to roll that position because we thought that the stock was going to go higher. Well, if we had it closed, okay, open it, put a check mark in both those boxes, and then we're going to click on roll selected. Not that bad. Now, be careful, okay? Once we get to this next page, click on roll selected, and it's going to say we're going to pick on that top line there, okay? When we pick on that top line there and say roll the selected, you're now going to see which ones are we doing. Well, the ones that we have are on row 3 and 4, okay? Now, notice what this has here. This literally has that we have the 1/8. We have the 26th July. These are the weeklies. These are the weeklies. I don't want the weeklies. Okay. I was kind of thinking more about going from July to August. How do we do that? Okay. So the row 3 and 4, those are our positions. These 2 top rows, those are new positions. So if I go to where it says edit spread, how could I do that? Well, you could go in that way, but I like to kind of go in this way. We're going to kind of click on that minus. Click on the minus, and it says delete. Thank you very much. Click on the minus and delete. Okay. Now what you're going to notice is we can also just go to where it says add option leg. So this is our current position. We're going to go to add option leg, and we're already on the verticals already. How do we know we're on the verticals? Well, if I go to where it says, I want to go back, should have stayed there, but it did not. If I wanted to do that and it didn't do that, let's take a look. Yeah, it didn't do that for me this time. So if we wanted to just, let's say, I want to change this, I'm going to kind of mix this up. But let's say we decided we want to go from a long call vertical to, let's say, selling the put by itself. Well, we did that before, right? We could now just go down to where it says 185, click on the 795, and then click. And then what that does is it puts that position right there. How do we know it's the August 24? Right there, okay? Now, if you're not someone who kind of likes to do those where it has more lines, what you can actually do is just kind of go ahead and say, look, I want to just fill this first. Get out of the position we have. Get out. Okay. Review. And then paper trade. And what it's doing is it's just getting out of the position we have. If that order fills, those Julys will come off. We could then go back into the trade tab. And then what you're going to notice is type back in Amazon. And then what you're going to see is click back on Amazon. And what you're going to notice is we want to go to that option chain. Okay. And once we do that, what you're now going to notice is, got to type in the right symbol. There we go. Option chain. There we go. Now we could just then go to the August, and you see when we go to the August, there we are, the 16th August, and we could say which one do we want to do. Okay. Now what we can now do is click on that 185, 180, and now this is like manually rolling the position, exiting the position we have, and then selling another one. Okay. Now I'm out of my time. So we kind of talked about today, how do you understand if there's stock or option positions? We also talked about, for example, how do you put on like a vertical cash secured put? And we also talked about how do you actually close positions and then roll positions. Okay. Now here's the thing, when you're on paper money account, just go ahead and practice. Your homework assignment is to start getting used to this, because as we talked about before, you're probably not always going to be sitting by the computer, but your phone is always close by. Okay. Now, let me kind of go back to something, just kind of close this, stop that, and let me go ahead and share this back on my regular computer. And what we want to do here is just kind of remind you, this is the last session, session 404, and I want to make sure that you have this playlist. Okay. So if you have questions, just feel free to ask me on X. I can answer those questions going forward. But also just remember, we have other sessions that we did, kind of showed you how to get more comfortable with using the thinkorswim mobile. Very powerful app, and it is free, and it's in your hands. Go out and use it. Now, coming up next, I want to give us a quick reminder that we will have a class from Lee, and he will be doing a Street Smart to thinkorswim web, so stay tuned for that. Want to also give us a quick reminder, and I want to thank you for attending today's session and the prior sessions as well. And it's a great topic to actually talk about. Now, remember, with what we discussed, it was done for example, illustrative purposes only. And this has been the session 4 of 4 on using your iPhone or your Samsung device, moving to thinkorswim mobile. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for Lee, and coming up next at the top of the hour. And with that said, thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.